Is this live right now? It's completely it broke twice, 2 times. Um, it just completely collapsed twice. So I have 2 things live right now. This is ridiculous. My God. I'm live twice right now, somehow, if that's possible. Okay, but before I start with this, I'm going to need to delete my other live streams which collapsed because that's not nobody wants to see me talk for a few seconds and then just okay. That I had 3 viewers and it just collapsed somehow. That was like a really good amount of views for me on a live stream. And then it just collapsed and I was going well through the book. A quarter, maybe a bit less of the book. I was so annoying. I guess this is kind of normal for YouTube. I'll be right back. I'm just going to... Hello, 2 people are watching. Okay. I would just like to say I'm sorry. The live stream collapsed twice. So it's yeah, I need to start the book again. I'll be right back. I just need to get something very fast. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. Please stay on. Okay, we'll start from the beginning, I guess. From the beginning of the book. Yeah, okay. I'm going to give a message onto the chat telling I'll very fast and then okay. 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 From the beginning of the book. Maybe it'll be better than the first live. Yeah. Yeah, it just collapsed 2 times, literally. So annoying. Uh, YouTube. Also, I would like to say, if you haven't seen, on my other channel, I've had a video. I took a clip from a show called The Blackadder. It's got over over 3,000 views somehow, blowing up on that channel. The things you should go check it out. But for now, enjoy the live reading. Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl. Chapter 1. The Three Farmers. Down in the valley there were three farms. The owners of these farms had done well. They were rich men. They were also nasty men. All three of them were about as nasty and mean as any man you could meet. Their names were Farmer Boggis, Farmer Bunce, and Farmer Bean. Boggis was a chicken farmer. He kept thousands of chickens. He was enormously fat. This was because he ate three boiled chickens smothered with dumplings every day for breakfast, lunch, and supper. Bunce was a duck and goose farmer. He kept thousands of ducks and geese. He was kind of a pot-bellied dwarf. He was so short, his chin would have been underwater in the shallow end of any swimming pool in the world. His food was donuts and goose livers. He smashed the livers into a disgusting paste and then stuffed the paste into the donuts. This diet gave him a tummy ache and a beastly temper. Bean was a turkey and apple farmer. He kept thousands of turkeys in an orchard full of apple trees. He never ate any food at all. Instead, he drank gallons of strong cider, which he made from the apples in his orchard. He was as thin as a pencil and the cleverest of them all. Boggis and Bunce and Bean, one fat, one short, one lean, the horrible crooks, so different in looks, were none of the less equally mean. That is what the children around about used to sing when they saw them. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Mr. Fox. On a hill above the valley there was a wood. In the wood there was a huge tree. Under the tree there was a hole. In the hole lived Mr. and Mrs. Fox and their four small foxes. For every evening, as soon as it got dark, Mr. Fox would say to Mrs. Fox, "Well, my darling, what shall it be this time? A plump chicken?" Yeah, every evening, as soon as it got dark, Mr. Fox would say to Mrs. Fox, "Well, my darling, what shall it be this time? A plump chicken from Boggis, a duck or goose from Bunce, or a nice turkey from Bean?" And when Mrs. Fox had told him that what she wanted, Mr. Fox would creep down into the valley in darkness of the night and help himself. Boggis and Bunce and Bean knew very well what was going on, and made them with wild rage. They were not men who liked to give anything away. Less still did they like anything to be stolen from them. So every night, each of them would take his shotgun and hide in the dark place somewhere on his own farm, hoping to catch the robber. But Mr. Fox was too clever for them. He always approached the farm with a wind blowing in his face, and this meant that if any man were lurking in the shadows ahead, the wind would just carry the smell of that man to Mr. Fox's nose from far away. Thus, if Mr. Boggis was hiding behind his chicken house number 1, Mr. Fox would smell him out from 50 yards off, and quickly would change directions, heading for the chicken house number 4 at the other end of the farm. "Dang blast that lousy beast! I'd like to rip his guts out." "He must be killed," cried Bean. "But how?" said Boggis. "How on earth are we going to catch the blighter?" Bean picked his nose delicately with a long finger. "I have a plan," he said. "You haven't had a decent plan yet," said Bunce. "Shut up and listen," said Bean. "Tomorrow night we will all hide just under the hole where the fox lives. We will wait there until he comes out. Then bang, bang, bang! Bang, bang, bang!" "Very clever," said Bunce. "But first we shall have to find the hole." "My dear Bunce, I've already found it," said crafty Bean. "It's up in the woods on the hill. It's under a huge tree." Chapter 3. The Shooting. "Well, my darling," said Mr. Fox, "what shall it be tonight?" "I think I think we'll have a duck tonight," said Mrs. Fox. "Bring us 2 fat ducks, if you please. One for you, and for me, and one for the children. One for you and me, and one for the children." "Ducks it shall be," said Mr. Fox. "Bunce's best." "Now do be careful," said Mrs. Fox. "My darling," said Mr. Fox, "I can smell those goons a mile away. I can even smell one from the other. Boggis gives off a filthy stink of rotten chicken skins. Bunce reeks of goose livers, and as for Bean, the fumes of apple cider hang around him like poison gases." "Yes, but don't get careless," said Mrs. Fox. "You know they'll be waiting for you, all 3 of them." "Don't worry about me," said Mr. Fox. "I'll see you later." But Mr. Fox would not have been quite so cocky had he known exactly where the 3 farmers were, waiting at the moment. They were just outside the tree they were just outside the entrance of the hole, each one crouching behind the tree, with his gun loaded. And what is more, they had chosen their positions very carefully, making sure the fox's hole, in fact, making sure that the wind was not blowing from them towards the fox's hole. In fact, it was blowing in the opposite direction. There was no chance of them being smelled out. Mr. Fox of crept up crept up the dark tunnel to the mouth of his hole. He poked his long handsome face out into the night air and sniffed once. He moved an inch or two forwards and stopped. He sniffed again. He was always specially careful when coming from his hole. He inched forward a little more. The front half of his body was now in the open. His back nose switched from side to side, sniffing and sniffing for the scent of danger. He found none, and he was just about to go trotting forwards into the wood when he heard, or thought he heard, a tiny noise. A soft rustling sound, as though someone had moved a foot ever so gently through a patch of dry leaves. Mr. Fox flattened his body against the ground and lay very still. His ears picked, pricked. He waited a long time, but he heard nothing more. It must have been a field mouse, he told himself, or some other small animal. He crept a little further out of the hole. Then, further still. He was almost right out in the open now. He took one last careful look around the wood. Zell is watching. Hello, Zell, other human being that I know who is in Austria right now. Okay. He crept a little further out of the hole. Then, further still. He was almost right out in the open now. He took a last careful look around. The wood was murky and very still. Somewhere in the sky the moon was shining. Just then, his sharp night eyes caught a glint of something bright somewhere behind a tree not far away. It was a small silver speck of moonlight shining on a polished surface. Mr. Fox lay still, watching it. What on earth was it? Now it was moving. It was coming up and up. Great heavens! It was a barrel of a gun. Quick as a rook, quick as a whip, Mr. Fox jumped back into his hole, and at that same instant the entire wood seemed to explode around him. Bang bang, bang bang, bang bang. The smoke from the 3 guns floated upwards into the night air. Boggis and Bunce and Bean came out from behind their trees and walked towards the hole. "Did we get him?" said Bean. One of them shone a flashlight on the hole, and there on the ground in the circle of light, half in and half out of the hole, lay the poor, tattered blood-stained remains of a fox's tail. Bean picked it up. We got the tail, but we missed the fox, he said, tossing the thing away. Dang and blast, said Boggis. We shot too late. We should have let fly the moment he poked his head out. He won't be poking his... Oh, sorry, wrong voice. He won't be poking his head out again in a hurry, Bunce said. Bean pulled out a flask from his pocket and took a swig of cider. Then he said, "It'll take 3 days at least before he gets hungry enough to come out again. I'm not sitting around here waiting for that. Let's dig him out." "Ah," said Buggis. "Now you're talking sense. We can dig him out in a couple of hours. We know he's there." "I reckon there's a whole family of them down there that hole," Bunce said. "Then we'll have the lot," said Bean. "Get the shovels." Zell, if you're watching right now, it's much easier if you leave the message in the chat because otherwise it makes a notification sound that's really distracting. Sorry. It just is. Okay. Chapter 4: The Terrible Shovels. Down the hole, Mrs. Fox was tenderly licking the stump of Mr. Fox's tail to stop the bleeding. Oh, also, if you can, send the link to every single person you know who you think would be interested. Actually, just every single person. As many views as possible. Get the algorithm of YouTube. We get the YouTube algorithm working, and then more people will enter from other places. Yeah. Chapter 4: The Terrible Shovels. Down in the hole, Mrs. Fox was tenderly licking the stump of Mr. Fox's tail to stop the bleeding. It was the finest tail for miles around, she said between the licks. "It hurts," said Mr. Fox. "I know it does, sweetheart, but it will soon get better. And it will soon grow again, Dad," said one of the small foxes. "It will never grow again," said Mr. Fox. "I shall be tailless for the rest of my life." He looked very glum. There was no food for the foxes that night, and soon the children dozed off. Then Mrs. Fox dozed off. Sound like a robot now. But Mr. Fox couldn't sleep because of the pain in the stump of his tail. "Well," he thought, "I suppose I'm lucky to be alive at all. And now they've found our hole. We're going to have to move out as soon as possible. We'll never get any peace if we—" What was that? He turned his head sharply and listened. The noise he heard was the most frightening noise a fox can ever hear. The scrape, scrape, scraping of shovels digging into the soil. "Wake up!" he shouted. "They're digging us out!" Mrs. Fox was wide awake in 1 second. She sat up, quivering all over. "Are you sure that's it?" she whispered. "I'm positive. Listen!" "They'll kill my children!" cried Mrs. Fox. "Never!" said Mr. Fox. "But, darling, they will!" sobbed Mrs. Fox. "You know they will!" Scrunch, scrunch, scrunch. They made a. I will read it after because um, scrunch, scrunch, scrunch went the shovels above their heads. Small stones and bits of earth began falling from the roof of the tunnel. "How will they kill us, Mommy?" asked one of the small foxes. His round black eyes were huge with fright. "Will there be frogs?" It's dogs, but frogs is just was more funny. "Will there be dogs?" he said. Mrs. Fox began to cry. She gathered her 4 children close to her and held them tight. Suddenly there was an especially loud crunch above their heads, and the sharp end of a shovel came right through the ceiling. The sight of this awful thing seemed to have an electric effect upon Mr. Fox. He jumped up and shouted, "I've got it! Come on! There's not a moment to lose. Why didn't I think of it before?" "Think of what, Dad?" "A fox can dig quicker than a man," shouted Mr. Fox, beginning to dig. "Nobody in the world can dig as quick as a fox." The soil began to fly out furiously behind Mr. Fox as he started to dig for dear life with his front feet. Mrs. Fox ran forward to help him. So did the four children. "Go downwards," ordered Mr. Fox. "We've got to go as deep as we possibly can." The tunnel began to grow longer and longer. It sloped steeply downward. Deeper and deeper, below the surface of the ground it went. The mother and the father and all four children were digging together. Their front legs were moving so fast you couldn't see them, and gradually the scrunching and scraping of the shovels became fainter and fainter. After about an hour, Mr. Fox stopped digging. "Hold it," he said. They all stopped. They turned and looked back up the long tunnel. They had just they had just dug the long tunnel they had just dug. All was quiet. "Phew," said Mr. Fox. "I think we've done it. They'll never get as deep as this. Well done, everyone." They all sat down, panting for breath. And Mrs. Fox said to her children, "I should like you to know, if it wasn't for your father, we should all be dead by now. Your father is a fantastic fox." Mr. Fox looked at his wife and she smiled. He loved her more than ever when she said things like that. Okay, I'll read. They made a fantastic animated version of this book recently, and few other Roald Dahl short stories also. Oh, from the short stories also? I know there was an animation from this book. I need to still watch it, but I didn't know there was for other um other stories. I'll check it out. The short stories, my favorite is The Pig. It's intense, kind of. Okay, I'm going to send the link from this thing to everybody because I sent the link from the last live reading. I'm going to send this one to everybody because otherwise they'll be entering the wrong one. 1 second, sorry. Please hold on 1 second. 20 Sekunden. I need to send this. Sorry, I'll be fast. Um, sorry. Did I to everybody? Yes, I think so. Oh wait. Okay. Okay, let's get back to it. One about the snake in bed called Poison. It was brilliant. And the wonderful story of Henry Sugar. Yes, I know the wonderful story of Henry Sugar. That's not a short story though. It's pretty long. But yeah, the wonderful story of Henry Sugar was really good. Really good. Super good book. Incredible. I didn't hear the book called Poison, but I'll check it out. Um, they made a short film from the book. Uh, called Poison or The Wonderful Shores. Yeah, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. That one I watched, yeah. Really good. Preferred the book though. Okay. I'll Book's always better. Yes, depends if they put everything in the movie. There is some movies that I think would be better than the books. Harry Potter movie better than the books. Much better, in my opinion. Books kind of maybe one book from the whole series was good, better than from the movie, but otherwise, nope. Yeah. Okay, I'll get back to it. Chapter 5. The Terrible Tractors. As the sun rose the next morning, Boggis and Bunce and Bean were still digging. They had dug a hole so deep you could have put a house in it, but they had not yet come to the end of the fox's tunnel. They were all tired and cross. "Dang and blast," said Boggis. "Whose rotten idea was this?" "Bean's idea," said Bunce. Bog Boggis and Bunce both stared at Bean. Bean took another swig of cider, then put the flask back into his pocket without offering it to the others. "Listen," he said angrily. "I want that fox. I'm going to get that fox. I'm not giving until I've strung him up over the front of my porch dead as a dumpling." "We can't get him if by digging, that's for sure," said fat Boggis. "I've had enough of digging." Bunce, the little pot-bellied dwarf, looked up at Bean and said, "Have you got any more stupid ideas then?" "What?" said Bean. "I can't hear you." Bean never took a bath. He never even washed. As a result, his ear holes were clogged with all kinds of muck and wax and bits of chewing gum and dead flies and stuff like that. This made him deaf. "Speak louder," he said to Bunce, and Bunce shouted back, "Got any more stupid ideas?" Being rubbed the back of his neck with a dirty finger, he said he had with a dirty finger. He had a boil coming there, and he had a boil coming there, and it itched. "What we need on this job," he said, "is machines, mechanical shovels. We'll have him out in 5 minutes with mechanical shovels." This was a pretty good idea, and the other two had to admit it. "All right then," Bean said, taking charge. "Boggis, you stay here and see the fox doesn't escape. Bunce and I will go fetch our machinery. If he tries to go out, shoot him quick." The long, thin Bean walked away. Tiny Bunce trotted after him. The fat Boggis stayed there. He, he was The long thin Bean walked away. Tiny Bunce trotted after him. The fat Boggis stayed where he was, with his gun pointing at the foxhole. Soon two enormous caterpillar tractors, with mechanical shovels on their fronts ends, came clanking into the wood. Bean was driving one. Bunce the other. The machines were both black. They were murderous, brutal-looking monsters. "Here we go again!" shouted Bean. "Death to the fox!" shouted Bunce. The machines went to work, biting huge mouthfuls of soil out of the hill. The big tree under which Mr. Fox had dug his hole in the first place was toppled like a matchstick. On all sides rocks were sent flying and trees were falling, and the noise was deafening. Down in the tunnel the foxes crouched, listening to the terrible clanking and banging overhead. "What's happening, Dad?" cried the small foxes. "What are they doing?" Sorry. Down in the tunnel, the foxes crouched, listening to the terrible clanging and banging overhead. "What's happening, Dad?" cried the small foxes. "What are they doing?" Mr. Fox didn't know what was happening or what they were doing. "It's an earthquake!" cried Mrs. Fox. "Look," said one of the small foxes, "our tunnels got shorter. I can see daylight." They all looked around, and yes, the mouth of the tunnel was only a few feet away from them now. And in the circle of daylight beyond they could see the two huge black tractors almost on top of them. "Tractors!" shouted Mr. Fox, "and mechanical shovels! Dig for your lives! Dig, dig, dig!" Chapter 6: The Race. Now there began a desperate race. The machines Zell, sorry. A friend gave a message to me. Sorry I couldn't make it. I was eating pizza, walking around. Bad gas stain. Um, I need to show him that I'm not finished because he thinks that my reading is finished. So I'll just quickly send him that. And I'll get back to the reading. New link. Last stream. Okay, let's get back to it, shall we? Someone just entered. Might be Zell. If not, hello. Say hello in the chat if you want to. If not, don't. Okay. Chapter 6: The Race. Now there began a desperate race, the machines against the foxes. In the beginning, the hill looked like this. After an hour, as the machines bit away more and like this. Sometimes the foxes would gain a little ground, and the clanking noises would grow fainter, and Mr. Fox would say, "We're going to make it, I'm sure we are." Then a few moments later, the machines would come back at them, and the crunch of the mighty shovels would get louder and louder. One of the foxes actually saw the sharp metal edge of one of the shovels as it scraped the earth just behind them. "Keep going, my darlings," panted Mr. Fox. "Don't give up. Keep going," said the fat Boggis shouted to Bunce and Bean. "We'll get him any moment now." "Have you caught sight of him yet?" Bean called back. "Not yet," shouted Boggis, "but I think you're close." "I'll pick him up with my bucket," shouted Bunce. "I'll chop him into pieces." But by lunchtime, the machines were still at it, and so were the poor foxes. The hill looked now like this. "Hey there, Mr. Fox!" yelled Bunce, leaning over his shoulder. "We're coming to get you now." "You've had your last chicken," yelled Buggis. "You'll never come prowling around my farm again." A sort of madness had taken hold of all of the three men. Old Skinny Bean and the dwarfish bellied Bunce were driving their machine, maniacs, racing the motors and making the shovels dig at a terrific speed. The fat Boggis was hopping about like a de dervish dervish and shouting, "Faster! Faster!" By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, this is what had happened to the hill. Okay, what? And then mm. the hole, the machines, the machine dug was like the crater of a volcano. It was such an extraordinary sight that the crowds came rushing out from the surrounding villages to have stared down at Boggis and Bunce and Bean. "Here, Boggis, what's going on? We're after a fox." "You must be mad." The people cheered and laughed, but this only made the three farmers more furious, more obstinate, obstinate, and more determined than ever not to give up until they had caught the fox. Chapter 7. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to. Okay. Hello there, whoever is here recently and hasn't given a message on the chat. If you want to give a message there, it's really cool. It's not like it's not like comments. Nobody. It's just chat live with the chat. So you can just give a message there in each chapter. Go check what you said, and I can. Anyway, chapter 7. We'll never let him go. 6 o'clock in the evening. He had switched off the motor of his tractor and climbed down the driver's seat. Buds did. Both men had had enough. They were tired and stiff from driving the tractors all day. They were also hungry. Slowly they walked around the small rocky hole in the bottom of the huge crater. Bean's face was purple with rage. Bunce was cursing the fox with dirty words that could not be printed. Boggis was waddling up. "Dang and blast the filthy, stinking fox," he said. "What the heck do we do now?" "I'll tell you I'll tell you what we don't do," Bean said. "We don't let him go." "We'll never let him go," Bunce declared. "Never, never, never!" cried Boggis. "Did you hear that, Mr. Fox?" yelled Bean, bending low, shouting down the hole. "It's not over yet, Mr. Fox. We're not going home till we've strung you up that dingbat." Whereupon the three men all shook hands with one another and swore a solemn oath that they would not go back to their farms until the "What's the next move?" asked Bunce, the lead dwarf. "We're sending you down the hole to fetch him up," said Bean. "Down you go, you miserable "Not me!" screamed Bunce, running away. Bean made a sickly smile. When he smiled, you saw his scarlet gum. You saw more gums than teeth. There's only one thing to do," he said. "We've to starve him out. We camp here the night and day and night, watching the hole. He'll come out in the end. He'll have to." Buggis and Bunce and Bean sent messages down to the farms asking for tents, sleeping bags, and supper. Chapter 8. The foxes begin to starve. That evening the three tents were put up in the crater on the hill. One for Buggis, one for Buggins, one for Buns, one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole, and the three farmers sat outside their tents eating their supper. Buggis had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings. Buns had 6 donuts filled with disgusting goose liver paste, and Bean had 2 gallons of cider. All three of them kept their guns beside them. Buggis picked up a steaming chicken and held it close to the fox's hole. "Can you smell this, Mr. Fox?" he shouted. Lovely tender chicken. Why don't you come up and get it?" The rich scent of the chickens wafted down the tunnel where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the small foxes, "couldn't we just have and snatch it out of his hand?" "Don't you dare," said Mrs. Fox. "That's just what they want you to do." "But we're so hungry," they cried. "How long will it be till we get something to eat?" Their mother didn't answer, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Bunce and Bean switched on the powerful headlamps of the two tractors, shone them onto the whole. Now, said Bean, we'll take it, we'll take it in turns to keep watch. Sluggers. Ice cream, is it? Ice cream. In winter, someone's catching a cold. Um, enjoy your ice cream. Where was I? Okay, I'll just start from. As darkness fell, Buzz and Bean switched on the powerful headlamps of the two tractors and shone them down onto the hole. Now, said Bean, we'll take it in turn to keep watch. One watches, two sleep, and so on all through the night. Boggis, Boggis said, what if the fox digs a hole right through the hill and comes out on the other side? You didn't think of that one, did you? Of course I did, said Bean, pretending he had. Go on then, tell us the answer. Bean, ice cream anytime. Yeah, I got a cold last time. That happened to me last time. I didn't. That's why I don't do it anymore. But as long as it's warm, then it's good. They just put the heater on, full power, full blast. Okay. Bean picked up something small and black out of his ear and flicked it away. How many men have you got working on your farm? Ah, yes, 35, August said. I've got 36, Bunce said. And I've got 37, Bean said. That makes 108 men altogether. We must order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight. There will be no escape then for Mr. Fox. So the other, so the order went down to the forest, and that night 108 men formed a close ring around the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns, hatchets and pistols, and all sorts of horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for a fox, or indeed for any other animal, to escape from the hill. At the end of the day, the one the next watching and waiting went on. August, Bunsen Bean sat on the small stools, staring at the fox's hole. They didn't talk much. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns in their laps. Every so often, Mr. Fox would creep a little bit closer towards the mouth of the hole and take a sniff, and he would creep back again and say, "They're still there." "Are you quite sure?" Mrs. Fox would ask. "Positive," said Mr. Fox. "I could smell that bean a mile away." Chapter 9. Mr. Fox has a plan. For 3 days this waiting game went on. How long can a fox go without any food or water? How long can a fox go without any food or water? Boggis asked on the third day. Not much longer now, Bean told him. He'll make a run for it soon. He'll have to. He was right. Down in the tunnel, the foxes were slowly but surely starving. If only we had just this tiny sip of water, said one of the small foxes. Oh, then it could be something. Could we make a dash for it then? We'd have a little bit of a chance, wouldn't we? No chance at all, snapped Mrs. Fox. I refuse to let you go up there and face those guns. It's I'd sooner stay down here and die. Mr. Fox had not spoken for a long time. Mr. Fox had not spoken for a long time. He had been quite still, his eyes closed, even hearing what the others were saying. Mrs. Fox knew that he was trying desperately to think of a way out, and now as she looked at him, she saw him stir she saw him himself and get slowly to his feet. He looked back at his wife. There was a little spark of excitement dancing in her. "What is it, darling?" said Mrs. Fox quickly. I just had a bit of an idea," Mr. Fox said carefully. "What? What?" they cried. "Oh, Dad, what is it?" "Come on," said Mrs. Fox, "tell us quickly." "Well," said Mr. Fox, then he stopped, and sighed and sadly shook his head. He sat down again. "It's no good," he said. "It won't work after all." "Why not, Dad?" "Because it means more digging. We and we aren't any of us strong and we aren't any of us strong enough for that 3 for at that after 3 days and nights without food." "Yes, we are, Dad," cried the small foxes, jumping and running to their father. "We can do it. You see if we can. So can you." Mr. Fox looked at the 4 small foxes, and he thought, "What fine children I have got. They are starving to death. They haven't had a drink for 3 days, but they are still undefeated. I must not let them. I suppose we could give it a try," he said. "Let's go, Dad. Tell us what you want us to do." Slowly to her feet. She was suffering more than any of them from lack of food and water. She was very weak. "I'm so sorry," she said, "but I don't think I'm going to be much help." "You can stay right where you are, darling," said Mr. Fox. "We can handle this by ourselves." 4 people watching. Hello, 4 human beings on this planet that are watching this video right now. You could be anywhere else, watching anything else, but you chose to be here. Thank you. Chapter 10. Boggis's Chicken House. This time, we must go in a very special direction, said Mr. Fox, pointing sideways and downward. So he and the started to sway to dig once again. The work went much more slowly now, yet they kept at it with great effort, and little by little the tunnel began to grow. "Dad, I wish you could tell us where we are going," said one of the children. "I dare not do that," said Mr. Fox, "because this place I am hoping to get is so marvelous that if I described it to you now, you would go crazy with excitement. And then, if we failed to get there, which is very possible, you would die of disappointment. I don't want to raise your hope too much, my darlings." For a long, long time they kept on digging, for how long they did not know, because there were no days and nights, and no nights down there in the mucky tunnel. But at last Mr. Fox gave the order to stop. "I think," he said, "we had better to take a peek upstairs and see. I know where I want to be, but I can't possibly be sure if we're anywhere near it." Slowly, warily, the fox began to slope the tunnel upwards, upwards to up towards upwards towards the surface, up towards the surface, up and up it went, until suddenly they came to something hard above their heads, and they couldn't go up any further. Mr. Fox reached up to examine something. "It's wood," he whispered. "Wooden planks. What does that mean, Dad?" "That unless I'm very much mistaken, that we're right by somebody's house," whispered Mr. Fox. "But be very quiet now while I take a peek." Carefully, Mr. Fox began pushing up one of the floorboards. The board creaked most terribly, and they all ducked waiting for something awful to happen. Nothing did. Mr. Fox pushed up the second board, and then very cautiously, he poked his head up through the he let out a shriek of excitement. "I've he yelled. "I've done it! First time! Done it! I've done it!" He pulled himself through the gap in the of the floor and started dancing and dancing with joy. "Come on up," he sang out. " come up and see where you are, my darlings. What a sight for our hungry folks. Hallelujah! Hooray! Hooray!" The four small foxes scrambled up out of the tunnel, and what a fantastic sight it was now met their eyes. They were in a huge shed, and the whole place was teeming with chickens. There were white chickens and brown chickens and black chickens by the thousand. Boggis's chicken house number one, cried Mr. Exactly what I was aiming at. I hit it slack in the middle. First time. Isn't that fantastic? If I may say so, rather clever. The small foxes went rather wild with excitement. They started running around all uh, directions, chasing the stupid chickens. "Wait!" ordered Mr. Fox. "Don't lose your heads. Stand back. Calm down. Let's do this properly. First, everyone have a drink of water." They all ran over to the drinking, drink, all ran over to the chickens, drinking through and up to the lovely cool. One second, wait. Sorry. Um, I okay. It's only 8. Sweet. They all ran over to the chickens drinking drink to the chickens drinking through and lapped up the lovely cool water. Then Mr. Fox chose the plumpest hens, and with a clever flick of his jaw, he killed them instantly. Back to the tunnel, he ordered. Come on, no fooling around. The quicker you move, the quicker you shall have some. One after another, they climbed down through the hole in the floor, and soon they were all standing once again in the dark tunnel. For Mr. Fox reached up and pulled the floorboards back into place. He did this with great care. He did it so that no one could tell that they were ever being moved. "My son," he said, giving the 3 plump chickens to the big his 4 children, "run back with these to your mother. Tell her to prepare a feast. Tell her the rest of us will be along in a jiffy, as soon as we have made a few other little arrangements." Chapter 11. A surprise for Mrs. Fox. The small fox ran back along the tunnel as fast as he could, carrying the 3 plump hens. He was exploding with joy. "Just wait, just wait till Mummy sees this." He had long he had a long way to run. He missed once on the way, and he came bursting in upon Mrs. Fox. "Mummy!" he cried out of bed. "Look, Mummy, look! Wake up and see what I've brought you." Mrs. Fox was weaker than ever now, and the lack of and from the lack of food of from the lack of food. She opened one eye and looked at the hens. "I'm dreaming," she murmured, closed her eye again. "You're not dreaming, Mummy. They're real chickens. We're safe. We're safe. We're not going to starve. Mrs. Fox opened both our eyes and said, "Click, my dear child," she cried. "Where on earth? Oh, this is chicken house number one," spluttered the small fox. "We tunneled right under it, and you've never seen so many big fat ants in all your life. And Dad said to prepare a feast. They'll be back soon." The sight of food seemed to give new strength to Mrs. "A feast it shall be," she said, standing up. "Oh, what a fantastic fox your father is. Hurry up, child, and start plucking those chickens." Far away down in the tunnel, the fantastic Mr. Fox. "Now for the next bit, my darlings. This is one, this one will be as easy as pie. All you have to do is dig another tunnel from here to there. To where that, don't ask any questions. Start chapter 12. Badger. Mr. Fox and the three remaining small foxes dug fast and straight. They were all too excited now to feel tired or hungry. They knew that they would have a whacking great feast before long, and the fact that it was none other than Boggis's chickens they were going to eat made them churgle with laughter every time they did. It was lovely to realize that while the fat farmer was sitting up there on the hill waiting for them to starve, he was also giving them their dinner without knowing it. "Keep digging," said Mr. Fox. "It's not much further." All of a sudden, a deep voice above their heads said, "Who goes there?" The foxes jumped. They looked up quickly, and they saw, peeking through a small hole in the roof of the tunnel, a long, black, pointed, furry face. "Badger!" cried Mr. Fox. "Foxy! Foxy!" cried Badger. "My goodness me! I'm glad I found someone at last. I've been digging around in circles for 3 days. I haven't had the foggiest idea where I am." Badger made the ceiling bigger and dropped down beside the fox. The small badger dropped down after him. Haven't you heard what's happened?" Badger said excitedly. "It's chaos. Half the wood has disappeared, and there are men with guns all over the countryside. None of us can get out even at night. We're all starving to death." "Who's we?" asked Mr. Fox. "What's stickers? Me and Mo and Rabbit and all of our wives and children. Weasel, who can usually sneak out of the tightest spot, is right now hiding down the hole with Mrs. Weasel and 6 kids. What on earth are we going to do, Foxy? I think we're finished." Mr. Fox looked at the furry children, and he smiled. The children smiled back, sharing his secret. "My dear old Badger," he said, "this mess you're "I know it's your fault," said Badger, "and the farmers are not going to give up till they've got unfortunately, unfortunately, that means us as well. It means everyone on the hill." Badger sat down, put a paw around his small son. "Well done," he said softly. "Your wife up there is so big she can another yacht." "Nor can mine," said Mr. Fox. "And yet at this very minute she is preparing for me and my children the most delicious feast of plumpy, juicy chickens." "Stop!" cried Badger. "Don't tease me. I can't stand it." "It's true," cried the small foxes. "That's not teasing you. We've got the chickens galore." "And because everything's entirely my fault," said Mr. Fox, "I invite I invite you to share the feast. I invite everyone to share it. You and Mole and the Rabbit and Weasel and all your wives and children. There'll be plenty to go around, I can assure you. You mean it? Cried Badger. You really mean it? Mr. Fox pushed his face close to Badger's and whispered darkly, do you know where we've just been? Where? Right inside Boggis's chicken house number one. No. Yes. But that is nothing to where we are going to go now. You have come just in the right moment, my dear Badger. You can help us dig, and in the meanwhile, your small son can run back to Mrs. Badger and all the others and spread the good news. Mr. Fox turned to the small badger and said, "Tell them they are invited to a fox's feast. Bring them all down here and follow this tunnel back until you find my home." "Yes, Mr. Fox," said the small badger. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Oh, thank you, sir." And he scrambled quickly back through the hole into the roof of the tunnel and disappeared. Going well, everybody? Three people watching? We are at chapter 13. s- Around, we've got like 21 pages to go. So yeah, we're getting close to the end. We have page 50. It has 81. So no, yeah, so it's still quite a bit to go. Let's get on with it. Chapter 13. Bounces, bounces giant story. No idea, Foxy, said Badger. What in the world has happened to your tail? Don't talk about it, please, said Mr. Fox. It's a painful subject. They were they dug in silence. Badger was a great digger, and the tunnel went forward in a terrific pace. He was landing a paw. Soon they were crouching under the net, under they were crouching underneath yet another wooden floor. Mr. Fox grinned slyly, showing sharp white teeth. "If I'm not mistaken, my dear Badger," he said, "we are now underneath the farm which belongs to the nasty little pot-bellied dwarf Bunce." Okay, let's keep going. If this, I will only be able to read another minutes probably. Let's hope I can get through the whole book by then, because then I have to have dinner, because it's already 8 and 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's get on with it. Directly underneath the most interesting part of the farm. "Ducks and geese!" cried the small chip foxes, licking their "juicy, tender ducks and big fat geese." "Exactly," said Mr. "But how in the world can you know where we are?" asked Badger. Mr. Fox grinned again, showing even more white teeth. "Look," he said, "I know my way around these farms blind. For me, it's just as easy below ground as it is above." He reached high and pushed up one wooden floorboard, then another. He poked his head through the gap. "Yes!" he shouted, jumping up into the room above. "I've done it again. I've hit it smack on the nose, right in the bull's-eye. Come and look, quickly, Badger." And there and the three quickly Badger and the three small foxes scrambled up. They stopped and stared. They stood and gaped. They were overwhelmed. They couldn't speak, for what they now saw was a kind of fox's room, a badger's dream, a paradise for animals. "This, my dear old badger," proclaimed Mr. Fox, "is Bunce's mighty storehouse. All his finest stuff is stored in here before he sends it off to the market. Against all the four walls of the great room in cupboards and piled upon shelves reaching from floor to ceiling were thousands and thousands of the finest and fattest ducks and geese plucked and for roasting. And above, dangling from the rafters, there must have been at least 100 smoked hams and 50 sides of bacon. "Just feast your eyes on that!" cried Mr. dancing up and down. What do you think of it, eh? Pretty good." Suddenly, as though springs had been released in their legs, three hungry small foxes and the revenantly hungry badger sprang forward to grab the luscious food. "Stop!" ordered Mr. Fox. "This is my party, so I shall get to do the choosing." The others fell back, taking their Mr. Fox began prowling around the storehouse, examining the glorious display with an expert eye. A thread of saliva slid down one side of his jaw, flung suspended in mid-air. Then he snapped. "We mustn't overdo it," he said. "We mustn't give the game away. We must let them know what we've been up to. We must be neat and tidy, and take just a few of the choicest morsels. So to start with, we shall add the four plump young ducks." He took them from the shelf. "Oh, how lovely and fat they are! No wonder Bunce could get a special price for them at the market. All right, Badger, lend me a hand to get them down. You children can help as well. There we go. Goodness me, look how your mouths are watering. And now I think we better have a few geese. There will be quite enough. We'll have the biggest. Oh my God, you'll never see finer geese than his kitchen. He does it. That's the way. And what about a couple of nice smoked ham? I adore smoked ham. Don't you, Badger? Fetch me a snipper ladder, will you please?" Mr. Fox climbed up the ladder and handed down three magnificent hams. "Do you like bacon, Badger?" "I'm mad about bacon," cried Badger, dancing with excitement. "A side of bacon. That big one up." "And carrots," said the smallest of three small foxes. "We must take some of those carrots." "Don't be a twirl," said Mr. Fox. "No, we don't never eat things like that." "For us, Dad, it's for the rabbits. They only eat vegetables." "My goodness me, you're right," cried Mr. Fox. "What a thoughtful little fellow you are. Take 10 bunches of carrots." Soon all this lovely loot was lying in a neat heap on the floor. The close, their small foxes crouched close, their noses twitching, their eyes shining with like stars. "Now," said Mr. Fox, "we shall have to borrow from our funds two of those useful push cards there in the corner." He and Badger fetched a p- fetched duck and geese and hams and bacons were loaded onto them. Quickly, quickly push the carts. Qu- quickly, the push carts were lowered through the hole, and in the floor, the animals slid down after them. Back in the tunnel, Mr. Fox again pulled the floorboards very carefully into place, so that no one could see they were being moved. "My darlings," he said, pointing to the three small foxes, "take a cart each, and run back as fast as you can to your mother. Give her my love, and tell her we are having guests for dinner. The badgers, the moles, the rabbits, and the weasels. Tell her it must be a truly great feast, and tell her the rest of us will be home as soon as we've done one more little tug." "Yes, Dad, right away, Dad," they answered, and grabbed and they probably each and went rushing off down the tunnel. From all the talking, saliva is being produced in my mouth. It's like a whole day's worth of talking into let's get some dryness into it. Okay, 3 people, so who's watching? I wonder. Someone I sent the link to? So, hello. You can say hello in the chat if you want to. Okay, chapter 14. Badger has doubts. Just one more visit, cried Mr. And I'll bet I know what that will be, said Nope. Just one more visit, cried Mr. Fox. I'll bet I know where that will be, said once the only small fox now left. He was the smallest fox of them all. Where? Said Badger. Well, said the smallest. We've been to Boggis, we've been to Bunce, but we haven't been to Bean. It must be Bean. You, you, you're right, said Mr. Fox. But what you don't know is which part of Bean's place we are about to visit. Which? Said both together. Aha, said Mr. Fox. Just you wait. They were digging as they talked. The tunnel was going forward fast. Suddenly, Badger said, Doesn't this worry you? Well, just a tiny bit, Foxy." "Worry me?" said Mr. Fox. "What?" "Oh, this stealing." Mr. Fox stopped digging and stared at Badger as though he had gone completely dotty. "My dear old furry Grump," he said, "do you know anyone in the whole world who wouldn't snipe a few chickens if his children were starving to death?" There was a short silence, while Badger thought deeply about it. "You are far too respectable," said Mr. Fox. "There's nothing wrong with being respectable," said Badger. "Look," said Mr. Fox, "Boggis and Bunce and Bean are out to kill us. You realize that, I hope." "I do, Fox, I do indeed," said the gentle Badger. "But we're not going to s to stop to their level. We don't want to kill them." I should do not indeed," said Badger. "We wouldn't dream of it," said Mr. Fox. "We shall simply take a little food here and there to keep us and our families alive, right?" "I suppose we'll have to. If they want to be horrible, let them," said Mr. Fox. We down here have decent, peace-loving people." Badger laid his head on one side and smiled at Mr. Foxy, he said, "I love you." "Thank you," said Mr. Fox. "And now let's get on with the digging." 5 minutes later, Badger's front paws hit again something flat and hard. "What on earth is this?" he said. "It looks like a solid stone wall." He and Mr. Fox scraped away the soil. It was a wall. It was built of bricks and not the wall was right in front of them, blocking their way. Now who in the world build a wall under the ground?" "Very simple," said Mr. Fox. It's a wall for an underground room, and if I'm not mistaken, it is exactly what I'm looking at." Oh, someone left. 2 people now. Chapter 15. Bean's secret cider cellar. Mr. Fox examined the wall carefully. He saw that the cement between the bricks was old and crumbly, so he loosened the brick without much trouble, and pulled it away slowly out from the hole where the brick had been. There popped a small, sharp face with whiskers. "Go away! You can't come in here. It's private." "Lord, good Lord," said Badger. "It's a rat." "You saucy beast," said Mr. Fox. "I should have guessed we'd find you somewhere." you would find you here down here somewhere. Go away, s- screeched the rat. Go on, beat it. This is my private pitch, said Mr. Fox. I will not shut up, screeched the rat. This is my I got here first. Mr. Fox gave a brilliant smile, flashing his white teeth. My dear rat, he said softly, I'm a hungry fellow. If you don't hop it quickly, I shall eat you up in one gulp. That did it. The rat popped back out of sight. Mr. Fox laughed and began pulling more bricks out of the wall. When he had made the biggish hole, he crept through it. Badger and the smallest fox followed him. They found themselves in a vast, gloomy cellar. "This is it," cried Mr. Fox. "This is what?" said Badger. "The place." Where are the turkeys?" asked the smallest, peering into the gloom. "I thought Bean was a turkey man." "He is a turkey man," said Mr. Fox. "But we're not after the turkeys, though. We've got plenty of food. Then what do we need then?" "Take a good look around," said Mr. Fox. "Don't you see anything that interests you?" Badger and Smallstock peered into the half darkness. As their eyes became accustomed to the gloom, they began to see what looked like a whole lot of big glass jars standing upon shelves around the walls. They went closer. There, there were hundreds of them, and upon each one of them was written the word cider. The smallest fox leaped into the air. "Oh, Dad!" cried out. "Look what we found! It's cider!" "Exactly," said Mr. Fox. "Tremendous!" said Badger. "Bean's secret cider cellar," said Mr. Fox. "But go carefully, my dear. Don't make a noise. This cellar is right underneath the farmhouse itself." "Cider," said Badger, "is especially good for badgers. We take it as medicine. One large glass 3 times a day. A day, 3 times a day, with meals and another at bedtime. It will make a feast into a it will make a feast into a banquet," said Mr. Fox. While they were talking, the smallest fox had sneaked a jar and had taken a gulp. "Wow!" he gasped. "Wowee!" You must understand, this was not the ordinary fizzy cider one buys in a store. It was the real stuff, home brewed, fiery like burned in your throat, boiled in your stomach. "Ah!" gasped the smallest fox. "This is some cider." "That's quite enough of that," said Mr. Fox, grabbing the jar and putting it to his own lips. A tremendous gulp. "It's a miracle," he whispered, fighting for breath. "It's fabulous. It's beautiful. My turn," said Badger, taking the jar and tilting it down. "It's it's like melted gold," he gasped. "It's like drinking sunbeam and rainbows." "You're poaching," shrieked. "You're poaching," shrieked the rat. "Put that down at once. There'll be none left for me." The rat was perched upon the highest shelf in the cell, peering out behind the trunk. There was a small rubber tube inserted in the neck of the jar, and the rat was using the tube to suck out the cider. "You're drunk," said Mr. Fox. Now you know why I'm doing that voice for him. For the rat. "Mind your business," shrieked the rat. "If you great clumsy brutes come messing about here, we'll all be caught. Get out and leave me to sip my cider in peace." At the moment They heard a woman's voice calling out in the house above them. Hurry up and get that cider label, the voice called. You know Mr. Bean doesn't like Mr. Bean. Yes, Sel. Mr. Bean, his name is Mr. Bean. At that moment, they heard a woman's voice in the house above them. Hurry up and get that cider, Mabel, the voice called. You know Mr. Bean. Doesn't like to be kept waiting, especially when you. 1 second, everybody. Let me just. Okay. Sorry about. Okay. The animals froze. They stayed absolutely still. They their bodies. Then they heard the sound of the door being opened. The door was at the top of the stone steps leading down from the cellar, and now someone was starting to come. Chapter 6. Four people. Hello, four people. Oh, three. Chapter 16. Chapter 16. The woman. Quick, said Mr. Fox. Hide. He and Badger and the smallest fox jumped up into the shelf onto the shelf in front of a row of big cider jars. Peering around the jars, they saw a huge book coming down into the cellar. Nice. Nice, Del. Your uncle and your grandma. Cool. More people listening to that. I'm close to the end though. There's like only 13 pages left. But yeah. But it's okay. A little bit is good enough. It's yeah. You can pick up easily from where we're at her because it's an easy book now. Hello, Uncle Pete. If you if you want to, you can just continue listening. 30 pages is cool. Yeah, it's actually a bit less than 30 pages. About 67, and there's 18 pages, so but it's okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll start from beginning of this chapter. Chapter 16. The woman. Quick, said Mr. Fox. Hide. He and Badger and the smallest fox jumped up onto the shelf and crouched behind a row of cider jars. Peering around the jars, they saw a huge woman come from the cellar. At the foot of the steps, the woman paused, looking to the right and left. Then she turned around and headed straight for the place where Mr. Fox and Badger, the smallest fox, were hiding. She stood right in front of them. The only thing between her and them was a row of cider jars. She was so close, so close. Mr. Fox could hear her breathing. Peeping through the two bottles, he noticed that she carried a big rolling pin. How many of these will he want this time, Mrs. B? And from the top of the steps, other voices called back, bring up two or three jars. He drank four yesterday, Mrs. B. Yes, but he won't want that many today because he's not going to be. there more than a few hours. He says the fox is bound to make a run for it this morning. It can't possibly stay down that hole another day without food. The woman in the cellar reached and lifted a jar of cider from the shelf. The jar was next, was next, was next, but on the jar she took was next, but to the jar was next but to the jar behind which Mr. Fox was crouching. I'll be glad when the rotten brute is killed and strung up on the front porch, she called out. And by the way, Mrs. Bean's husband promised I could have the tail as a souvenir. The tail's been all shot to pieces, said the voice from upstairs. Don't you know that? You mean it's ruined? Of course it's ruined. They shot the tail, missed the fox. Oh, heck, said the big woman. I did not want that tail. So you can have the head instead, Mabel. You can have it stuffed and hang it on your bedroom wall. Hurry up now and get the cider. Yes, ma'am, I'm coming, said the big woman. She took a second jar for from the shelf. I'm stumbling too much, sorry. If she takes one more, if she takes one more, she'll see us. Though though Mr. Fox, he could feel the smallest body pressed tightly against his own, quivering with excitement. Will two be enough, Mrs. Bean, or shall I take three? My goodness, Mabel, I don't care so long as you get a move on. Then two it is, said the woman, speaking to herself. He drinks too much anyway. Carrying a jar in each hand, and with the rolling under her one arm, she walked away across the cellar at the front of the steps. Good night, Zell. Gotta go. Okay. Good night. It's like what 9:30 over there, right? Here it's 8:30. But yeah, sleep well if you're going to sleep. The two it is, said the huge one. We'll just go from here. The two it is, said the to herself now. He drinks too much anyway. Carrying a jar in each hand and with the rolling tucked under one arm, she walked away across the cellar. At the front, at the foot of the steps, she paused and looked around, sniffing the air. There's rats down here again, Mrs. Bean. I poison them, woman. Poison them. You know where the poison is kept. She climbed slowly out of sight, up the steps, the door. Quick, said Mr. Fox. Grab a jar each and run for it. Rat stood on his high shelf and shrieked. What did I tell you? You nearly got a snap, didn't you? You nearly gave the game away. You keep out here from that. I don't want you around. This is my place. You, Fox, are going to be poisoned. Poppycock, said, said Rat. I sit up here and watch her putting the stuff down. She'll never get me. Mr. Fox and Piper, the smallest fox, ran across the cellar, clutching a gallon jar each. Goodbye, Rat. They called out as they disappeared through the hole in the wall. Thanks a lot for the lovely cider. Thieves! Shrieked the robbers! Bandits! Burglars! Chapter 17. The Great Feast. Back in the tunnel, so that Mr. Fox could break up the hole in the wall, he was humming to himself as he put the bricks back in place. I can still taste the glorious cider, he said. What an impudent fellow the rat is. He has he has bad manners, the badger said. All rats had bad manners. Or never met a polite rat yet. And he drinks too much, said Mr. Fox, putting the last there we are. Now home to the feast. They grabbed their jars of cider. Off they went. Mr. Fox, small fox, came next, and Badger last. Along the tunnel they flew, past the tur past the turning that led to Miss Bunce's mighty store house, past Boggis's chicken house number one, and then up the long home stretch towards the place where they knew Mrs. Fox was waiting. "Get up, my darlings!" shouted Mr. Fox. "We'll soon be there. Think what's waiting for us at the other end, and just think what we're bringing home in these jars. That ought to cheer up the poor Mrs. Fox." Mr. Fox sang a little song as he ran. "Home again, home again, swiftly I glide, back to my bride. She'll not feel so rough as soon as I have some cider in her inside." Then Badger joined in. "Oh, poor Mrs. Badger! Oh, poor Mrs. Badger!" he cried. "So hungry, she very near died. If you thought she was if only she was swallowed, cider inside." So they were still stinging as they rounded the final corner and burst in upon the most wonderful, amazing sight of them of them had ever seen. The feast was just a large dining room had been hollowed out of the earth, and in the middle of it, seated around a huge table, were no less than 29 animals there were. I'm thinking of my uncle's home now. Yeah? Oh, okay, I thought it was the left. It's 2 people. Cool. So you still hear me, cool. Okay, leave a like if that's possible because that makes it that it recommends so it makes it recommends to other people the more likes, which mean because it means YouTube is thinking, "Okay, people recommend." Yeah. Okay, good night again. Good night, Zell. Plus, if you're going to give another message, could you leave it on the because on the WhatsApp thing to make notification sound, then it's really like real uh, distracting. You're still okay, no. Mrs. Fox and Mr. Badger and 3 small badgers. Mole and Mrs. Mole and the small 4 mole. Rabbit and the 5 small rabbits. Measle and Mrs. Weasel and Mrs. Weasel. The 6 small weasels. Covered with chickens and ducks, geese and lambs and bacon, carrots, and everyone was enjoying was tucking into the food. "My darling," cried Mrs. Fox, jumping up and hugging Mr. Fox. "We couldn't wait. Please forgive us." Then she hugged the smallest fox of all, and Mrs. Fox hugged Badger, and everyone hugged everyone else. Amidst the shouts of joy, the great jars of cider were placed upon the table. Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox sat down with the others. You must remember, no one had eaten a thing for several weeks. They were so for a while there were no conversations at all. There was sound crunching and chewing as the attached the succulent food as the animal attacked the succulent food. At last he raised his glass of cider and called out, "I want you all to stand and drink a toast. Our dear friend who has saved our lives this day, Mr. Fox." "To Mr. Fox!" they all shouted, standing up and raising their glasses. "To Mr. Fox! Long may he live!" Then Mrs. Fox got shyly to her feet and said, "I don't want to make a speech. I just want to say one thing, and it is my and this and it and it is this. My husband is a fantastic fox. Everyone clapped and cheered. Then Mr. Fox himself stood up. Delicious meal, he began. Then he stopped. In, si- in silence that followed, he let fly tremendous belch. It was a tremendous belch. Burp. There was laughter and more clapping. This delicious meal, my friends, he went on, is of Messrs. Boggis Bunce. Misters Boggis, Bunce and Bean. More cheering and laughter went, and I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. Let fly another colossal burp. Better out, better out than in, said Badger. Three people. Hello, whoever joined in. Just saying, we're really close to the end. Three, four people. Sorry. Thank you, said Mr. Fox, grinning hugely. But now, my friends, let us be serious. Let us think of tomorrow and the next day and the days after that. If we go out, sorry, one second. Sorry, I need to finish. I'm going to finish. It's really nearly right. Thank you, said Mr. Fox, grinning. But now, my friends, let us be serious. Let us think of tomorrow and the days after that. If we go out, we will be killed, right? Right, they shouted. We'll be shot before we've gone a yard, said the badger. Exactly, said we'll be shot before we've gone a yard, said Badger. Exactly. Who wants to go out anyway? Let me ask you that. We're all beggars, every one of us. We hate the outside. The outside is full of enemies. We only go out because we have to get our food for our family. But now, my friends, we have an entire new setup. We have a safe tunnel leading to three stores in the world. We do indeed, said Mr. Badger. I've seen them. And you know what this means, said Mr. Fox. It means that one of us need ever ne- that none of us need ever go out into. There was a buzz of excitement around the table. I therefore invite you all, Mr. Fox went on, to stay true with me forever, they cried. My goodness, how marvelous! And to Miss, my dear, just think, we're never going to be shut again in our lives. We will make, said Mr. Fox, a little underground village with streets and houses on each side, separate houses for badgers and moles and rabbits and weasels and foxes. And every day I will go shopping for you all. And every day we will live like kings. The chief that followed this speech went on for many minutes. Chapter 18, last chapter. Two more pages. Chapter 18. Still waiting. Outside the fox's home, Boggis and Bunce and Bean sat outside beside their tent with their guns on their laps. It was beginning to rain. Water was trickling down the necks of the three men to their shoes. "You won't stay up there much longer now," Boggis said. The brute must be famished," Bunce said. "That's right," he said. "He'll make a dash for it any moment. Keep your guns handy." They sat there by the hole waiting for the fox to come out, and so far as I know, they are still waiting. The end. That was a long reading, nearly 2 hours. My oh, yes. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the reading. Didn't hear any just go back and you can listen to it again. Maybe there's a few stuff to the chapter. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the reading. Thank you so much for being here. Like I say, nearly every video. Um, it's crazy that people are watching me right now on YouTube because there's any other place you could be on YouTube. Any thousands of places, videos, millions of videos. You could be anywhere and you're here watching, listening to me. Good job. I'm glad it was a pleasure. That's the whole point. If it wasn't a pleasure, then I had to change something. I'm trying to get better with reading, so sorry if I make stuff up, but over the next few months and weeks, I will hope to get better at reading and stuff like that. Okay, well, I need to end the stream because I'm having a late dinner today. So yeah, thank you for being here. Have a great night, and see you next. I'll be live tomorrow again, as I do every Saturday and Sunday. My new schedule. And yeah, I'll also be back tomorrow. See you tomorrow. I'll read something for fun, something like that. Greetings from Grand Hotel Europe in Gad. My lucky you're all in Austria. Cool. Good night. Yes. Good night. Hope you enjoy your holiday over there. Yeah. See you in next time you see a video with me in it. So yeah, I will end the stream in 3, 2, 1. Oh wait, no. 3, 2, 1. Good night. 3, 2, 1.